it's a legitimate expense that we have to deal with. So, to me, it's something the town is gonna pay for. We have to pay for it from free cash, then we're paying less in snow and ice. So, I mean, the net
But
result is no
guess-
change. So that's one issue, okay? That's fixable. The other issue is getting a legitimate, a detailed explanation of why we spent so much in overtime last week or the week before.
Right, that
okay?
is another
And a week
discussion.
So I'm trying to separate the two.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, one is related to maybe past practice that we've now find out that the DOR is looking at it differently and we need to fix that. And the other is, an operational decision. And the question is, why did we spend that amount of money and for what?
I think whatever it was spent on, I don't have a concern as to what it was spent on. It's just a question of where the allocation
Right.
for the cost of it is coming from. Whether it's appropriate to come from snow and ice, or should it come from the other DPW
No, I see
overtime.
two separate issues, Steve.
I know, but it happened to be
One is-
charged to
I think
the.
one is pretty clear. I mean, if it was something that doesn't qualify for snow and ice, it's gotta be put somewhere else.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Done.
Done.
The other issue is a little more difficult to understand, and that's why did we have such a high overtime rate on a week that, we weren't necessarily plowing?
Well, we did. We had one day, we had about 4 inches, but that whole week was around the 40s and 30s and maybe even got closer to 50 a couple times during that week. But then they had that one day with the storm. So that one day with the storm, we actually, look at the hours expended, it's actually pretty reasonable. But then when you look at the days when I went back and looked at what the weather was on that particular day, it was almost 50 degrees and we spent a considerable amount of hours. And it was in your, when you guys came in to sign the warrants, I'm surprised nobody else saw it. I mean, I took it home, I sent Greg an email that evening, made sure he got the dick, so you had heads up on this. I didn't want to throw this at you cold, so I hope everybody knew I was gonna bring this up. But that's 520 hours in a week, that was
I knew I couldn't find
really nice. And I can't emphasize enough, Greg and Dick, you gotta help, at least me personally, walk out this door today. This isn't a witch hunt. I just wanna be able to, when this gets put in the transcript or on patch, I need to look people in the eye and they're gonna ask me this question. We need to be on the same page of what the answer is. And I don't know if I can give a good answer right now, and I need some help.
Done.
Just one observation about the overtime in general, not specifically the 500 hours we've been talking about. The storms, quotes that we've had, and they've been very small amount of snow, but they've all happened overnight. So I expect that your overtime, this $40-odd thousand that has been spent so far this year outside of the Halloween storm, some amount of that certainly would be attributed to going out and treating the roads, even if it's only an inch of snow that's coming down. And if it's happening overnight, by definition, that's going to be overtime. So, I think we can look at this and although it's a large fraction of last year when we had tons of snow, if you've got to go out there and treat at least the arterial roads for that 1 inch or 3/4 of an inch of snow, then you're gonna rack up some overtime. I think that's the kind of thing we're looking for, at least that I'm looking for, Dick, is how do we spend it? And that, as I say, is aside from the question on the more recent 500 hours.
That's a good question. Yeah, because I think the number, Dick, when you look at your snow removal costs chart here for each year, and you look at the cost per inch, I think we're at for the year over almost $18,000 an inch. I know it's not a great formula, a great calculation to use, but you use it here, and if I use that same rationale, that's what I come up with so far. So we may want to even throw that one out. But I would like, if it's okay going forward, Greg, that you continue to provide us the overtime for snow and ice in our warrants when we sign them. I think it's actually helpful to give us some insight to what's going on. It'd probably be helpful for Dick to receive that too. So thank you for providing that.
So I guess as an action item, Greg, I'd like to, first of all, get an accurate accounting of what needs to be taken out as the snow and ice line item and put in other area of the DPW budget. And I think the board is looking for an answer as to how we managed to spend 500 hours. We haven't got a good answer to that. And if it can't be answered tonight, I'd like it answered at meeting next Thursday night.
I think if you look at this, we need to analyze exactly what the weather conditions were. I mean, you look at the event, and I recall as I look at the listing of snow and ice overtime expenditures on that date, there was an event that began on a Thursday evening and lasted until a Friday morning. During that period of time, for that one storm event from Thursday into Friday, there was a total of 183.5 hours of overtime that was expended on that storm event.
Right.
I have to depend upon my department head and Dick to tell me in terms of how that, the necessity for that, but there very clearly was an event, and I recall it crystal clear, that began overnight on a Thursday and lasted until the Friday morning. And the reason why I know that is some of us attended the MMA meeting that day, and the commute early in the morning was, it was quite icy. I can't claim whether that event was 16 hours in duration or 6 hours in duration, but there clearly was an event
Yep.
that did take place that evening. And then also on the Saturday, which would have been I think it's probably the 20th or the 21st, there was an event that took place throughout that day that probably resulted in 4 or 5 inches. And as I go through the snow and ice report, I see that there was 256.9 hours expended for that storm. So
How many hours?
256.9. And that would be for the duration of the event, which was on that Saturday.
Those are overtime hours?
Correct.
It's a weekend.
Correct. Well,
Double
it's
time.
divided amongst a number of different individuals that are here. And as I go through the listing, I see things in there such as meter reading, water treatment plant issues that are included in here. Not to a great extent, and that's why I'm saying that.
Yeah, well, I
there's-
took all that out when I
So I'm
did
saying
it,
it's
when I added it up. I took all those
256.9 hours of overtime that was expended on that Saturday. And I'm going to presume that in speaking with Dick, that there was an all-call for all of his personnel to be available for the duration of that event that lasted throughout the day. And the total overtime that was expended ranged upwards of 14 to 15 hours for some individuals. Some worked less, but I see that in terms of the accounting, there were some individuals that worked upwards of 15 hours over the course of that event of that day. And again, I do recall clearly that there was an event that took place on that Saturday that lasted
Yep.
throughout the day into the evening hours. And
So, this, you said there were 400 hours?
520
Oh,
from
520.
the 17th to the 22nd on there.
correct.
180,
But if you even look on the 17th, which was a really nice day,
330 hours.
What I'm saying
there was
is,
still snow and ice money being burned on overtime on a really nice day. So maybe it goes along with what you were talking about, and you were having the guys do some maintenance or whatever it may be.
that's
But
exactly what
it was
was
actually a
being
good
done.
chunk. You were at you add up the 17th and 18th and 19th, which were really nice days. I had to question it. It just kind of stuck out.
But part of it too is, after the event, there's still a maintenance and upkeep and
This was
taking
prior
care
to
of
the
the
event.
equipment too.
This
Prior
was
to the
prior to
event.
the,
Yeah, but,
3 days prior to the
Yeah.
event.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the 17th and the 18th, there were overtime hours that were expended. They averaged, most of them were in the 4 to 6 hour range, but as I go through the listing, there were 4 employees that worked a total of 11 hours of overtime on those dates that Selectman Prisco alluded to as being nice days. And again, in what Dick had said is that there's been a lot of activity down at the Public Works Garage in terms of maintenance that's been deferred for a period of many years. And I know when speaking with Dick, I had an opportunity to go down there and look what was taking place. And I was quite pleased with the work that's been done. I think that.
Well, I don't disagree with the work needs to be done. There's no doubt.
Very
I
clearly.
just think it should be coming out of his overtime budget,
Sure.
not out of this budget.
Sure.
I would ask, just like I did
That's all. It's not a question of the
concerning
work.
concerning the October storm, is that an appropriate expenditure of snow and ice budget for maintenance items? Should that go under snow and ice overtime?
Yeah.
What does DOR say concerning that? Does anyone,
Which question?
for maintenance of the equipment,
Yeah,
what I'm
that's-
hearing is he's giving the guys time, overtime, to do that work, and then he's charging it to the snow and ice overtime budget. Is that the appropriate category that should be classified under.
Well, I would think that is something that the vehicles are used for snow and ice, and they have to be maintained during that
That's-
period of time.
I mean, I would say that, the.
Well, I asked a question, so.
Elizabeth is
Okay,
standing here,
stand.
maybe she has an opinion.
Repairs to, snow plows and vehicles, they will allow you to charge those. Now, not all year, not in excess. They are looking very closely at unallowable, expenditures that they see as not to be charged with snow and ice. Maintenance to the DPW facility during a storm would not be a qualified snow and ice expenditure. They're not, out plowing snow at that time. If they're painting or, putting something together in DPW during the storm, it would not be charged to snow and ice. You can charge it to another DPW line, but DOR is looking very closely at the expenditures.
Thank you.
My comment on snow and ice is if there are expenses related to a winter storm, we have routinely charged them to snow and ice. In terms of the extent of what we've had, yes, the costs were more this event, but in the past, we have always routinely charged winter storm events to the snow and ice account. And if there's an event such as the storm that took place in August, then obviously that's not something that's a snow and ice eligible cost. But we do go forward, and we certainly will go forward and true up these costs, but it may be necessary. One of the things that we've worked hard for in the past is we've worked hard to avoid additional special town meetings throughout the year.
Oh, yeah.
We go from October to June without a special town meeting. What I'm saying to you is, we, as administration, is working hard with the department heads to avoid the necessity to say to you, we need a town meeting. Because as the chairman said, whether those monies come from free cash or they come from snow and ice, we'll have to pay those monies no matter what. But going forward, we certainly will not hesitate to request that we have to call a special town meeting for those purposes. We have purposely tried to avoid that. We realize that that has been short-sighted and mistaken, and we're unaware of the fact that the board was concerned about that. We certainly will make those recommendations for town meetings going forward.
Fine. Before that happens, I assume that we take all action of managing the budgets
We
first.
already have, Dick and I have had a conversation since this issue was brought to our attention relative to snow and ice expenses going forward.
All right, so the expenditures that should not have been put into snow and ice will be adjusted out, and we'll deal with, you'll give us a report on the impact on the balance of the budgets at our next meeting. Okay? Any other questions?
So the motion before us, we're going to
Pass over.
defer?
You're gonna pass over the motion?
We're gonna defer it at
No,
this
I
point?
don't, well,
Or, yeah, what are the ramifications of deferring action on this right now, right, the deficit? Anything?
yeah, I'm sorry.
I think the.
Are there any ramifications associated with not taking a vote?
I don't think so. I think the fact that the matter has been brought up at a board meeting, but at some point, we would request the board so vote to approve. We think it's important that we do so and have a vote of the board that backs that up.
Yeah, I don't have any problem doing that, just as long as we have the right number
Well,
identified, that's all. Yeah.
the,
Ask for getting that.
operating in a deficit, we've already gone through the amount that's in the budget. I think we have to do this,
He's,
right? Am
We
I right or wrong?
have, just to recap, we have $175,000, which is our snow and ice budget. We also set aside and reserve in our tax levy for next fiscal year the sum of $250,000. So that's the amount that we reserve to cover any deficit. So, and those monies are actually set aside in the budget every year to take care of the prior year's snow deficit.
So my question, though, is, once you spend what's in the budget, don't we have to declare?
Yes?
So isn't that what this motion is about?
Yes,
And
it has
therefore, I think we've already expended that amount long before we got into this issue.
Right, even if you back out the
Even if you
500
back
hours
out
and some of
that,
the other
we
things,
still
but
have that
they
problem.
still get the $175,000 been expended.
Well, I don't know. How much you gonna back out? I haven't seen any detail.
yeah.
I don't know if he's exceeded the 175.